I just want to say welcome to everyone. Thank you so much for coming today to How to Adapt and Rebuild Your Small Business During COVID-19. With us today is Victor. And Victor, I'm not sure how to pronounce your last name.
Behnke.
Behnke. He is
Yep.
a retail and small business consumer credit consultant to Wells Fargo Bank. And he is here today to share with us important information on how to adapt and rebuild your business during COVID-19. So with that, I am going to pop open the share screen and get this going. So I'll turn it over to you, Victor.
Now that sounds good. So, and thank you guys so much. We really appreciate all our smart business customers. As she mentioned, my name is Victor Behnke. I'm the small business consultant for North County and San Diego and Inland Empire. Today, what we want to do is really look at, a number of aspects that affect life and businesses during COVID. The goal really is to better give you guys a better sense of how we might want to adapt and rebuild during these times. We'll navigate through some of the things. But I'll go to the next slide real quick, and I'm going to ask Kathy there we go. So, when we think about, before we get started, I just really want to get a good sense of what shifted so far. When we think about, starting in March, COVID-19 became a major problem in the American cities. Local governments began to shut down, responding. By mid-March, the federal government implemented social distancing. We had some distractions. As a result, a large portion of the economy shut down. And when I think about it, it had to do with like travel, retail, restaurant, entertainment. But meanwhile, we saw other industries that really began to increase, right? Like online retailers. Kathy, don't make fun of me, but my wife gets something from Amazon every single day. So, we kind of looked at that. When we looked at summer, 79% of the small businesses were partially reopening. However, the extent of that operation, whether or not, they had setbacks, it varied by location. Kind of which leads me to, another part of, some of the uncertainty. Many people are having vastly different experiences with COVID. And I will say, just for the sake of time, I do want to make sure I open it up to comments at the end. So if you guys can hold comments till the end, we'll definitely discuss that. But, some regions have had very different cases, right? When I look at North County Inland, basically Inland Empire and San Diego, we've had some big opportunities. Reopening is also, it's happening at different paces with different guidelines, depending on locations. When I think, most cities and states are monitored their situation and they paused the reopening to adjust to policies, and they need some, base information around COVID-19. As a business owner, I know you guys are really concerned about, it's a lot of information, and I feel really bad because I feel like, we want to keep up on it, but, since then, so many businesses, and I think 8 out of 10 right now are adapting to different things. So knowing that, it also makes it much easier to, understand, small business owners, if we think about it, for maybe 6 to 12 months, they have to get back to business as usual. So if you think about that, it means most businesses might not see normal, even in 2021. That's one reason why we decided to, really want to help. While COVID-19 has overwhelmingly grounded, us with our business and community, it's really crazy times. So today, what I want to do is I just want to talk to you guys about helping your company stay relevant. I want to help you guys maintain the DNA of your business. And I don't want you to worry about, taking detailed notes. I can send Kathy all this information and we'll send it to you. But after we're done, I'll give you, some information about how to move forward. When I look at the next slide, when we talk about the agenda, today our agenda is really about, starting with some simple insights. There's a lot of noise and speculation going on. Honestly, we really know it takes a lot out of, humans to cope with, all the situations that are going on. And I hope this really helps you get a grasp of what's happening. A couple of things I want to talk about is, how do you really grow your business? And that means, what's going on with your business today, what's changed, during the COVID-19 and how you can adapt. Business strategies is always super figuring in everything that we do, but want to work with you guys on that. From there, what I'd like to do is kind of talk about your connections. And this is really huge at Wells. And again, I don't want you to think it's just about Wells, it's about every bank. We really want you to refer to your broad network of people. And that includes, potential mentors, industry contactors, customers. We were exploring, how to work together, to be very strategic. What I would say is today we're going to discuss, our marketing, your messaging, how you need to shift to accommodate to new customers and potential changes to business. We also want to help you build your already existing strategies and how to move forward. So, finally, the last thing is, and I know you guys are all going to want to talk about this, but, we'll talk about money. There's a plethora of resources out there for business owners, and we'll talk about that. But, first, let's position, how you want to improve your cash flow. So if you look at the next slide, and there we go, we got the insights. As I mentioned, it's really important to get a perspective on your customer situations. And what I mean by that is, while you're going through this unprecedented times, and, in many ways, there's so many similar industries. And I think historically that we can get a good guideline as to what happened, so we're going to take a look at some, how humans have coped in the past with illnesses, as well as how we bounce back during downturns. I'm kind of thinking, I don't know. I mean, how do we get through this and go through it? So if we go to the next slide, and there we go. And I will say, while we've never seen any situations like this one, humanity's always unprecedented changes, and we've always persevered. If I think back to like 1957, there was a new strain of the flu that hit the US, right? And it impacted us significantly. Similar to COVID, our world leaders took ill, stocks tumbled, economy, it tipped into recession, but, I'm sorry, the short flu was kind of well-lived, but we were able to develop a vaccine. American companies ramped up. We really provided production, and we figured out how to get through this. In the end, the recession, if you think about it, only lasted 3 quarters, and the stock market bounced back like 20% in the last year. If you think about and I'm going to go way back, if you think about, during the Italian Renaissance, one of the most important periods of our growth, the revolution was really focused on art, music, architecture. And we followed up with one of the darkest periods in the European history, right? We had the major plague in the 14th century. And in this instance, humanity, it wasn't only preserved, but, we actually thrived with it. So if we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much. So right now, when I look at it, businesses they're often very resilient with humanity. So if we want to look at some of the bear markets, and if you look through these slides, you'll see what I'm talking about. But if you look at the S&P in the early 2000s, obviously we had the dot-com bubble, and it burst, right? And I'm old enough to realize, you guys probably don't, but it was really bad. And then we followed that with the Great Recession. We had the S&P, that turned down gosh, I think it was like 6 years for losses. But you can see in both markets, we did have a recovery. And what I want to tell you guys is the charts don't tell the whole story. If we look at the dot-com bubble in 2002, a number of, super internet companies with evaluated valuations caused the stock market to plummet. But while the market, eliminated significant amounts of wealth, for a lot of our customers, and it really, everyone felt it crippled the society. In fact, if you think about it, from 2000 to 2002, retail spending actually increased. And despite all the market downturns, we actually did well. In the Great Recession, there was a number of companies that succeeded. For instance, if you think about like discount retailers, they performed really well. They catered to customers with less disposable income. Similarly, there was also some healthcare companies and grocery stores and other businesses that provided essential products, and that's what really helped. I think the takeaway here is that, even in a bear market, which is where we're in now, and that's my opinion, we see, some quite negative things, but there's also some silver linings, going forward. So I think the key to understanding how we really affect and adapt our business accordingly, that's how we're going to go. So if we can go to the next slide really quick. I think, what I want to get you guys to understand is, how do we recover during those silver linings? If I'm saying, staying up to date with what's happening is a good start, and that's what we want to do. But it's also helpful to really, keep in perspective, and not get too wrapped up in all the negative stuff. First, foremost, I find that, trusted news sources, that prevent information about the way, that makes sense to COVID. It's also obviously affecting, different things and differently. And we see different rules and regulations, and, it can vary a lot. I think you can pick one prime source and, maybe help you confuse, but streamline information. But what I would say is, check your resources, check it once a day, check it twice a day. It'll definitely help you. But it's super, super important that we focus on the positives of COVID-19. And in particular, what I see in some changes scenarios, since many of our business customers and our consumer customers are staying at home, we have limited exposure to positive news, right? So if you think about it from that aspect, what makes optimism challenging? Meanwhile, I would say, I feel like it's really worthy news, and everywhere as a business leader, we need to try to, share positive news with your clients and employees. You might even want to consider, developing a system around, sharing insights, kind of like additional newsletters. Don't know if you guys do that, but it's something I've seen some of my peers do. I think this can help you, really keep tabs on the morale of your employees. And that's really, really important. We want to understand how employees are feeling and our customers. And it can also help you assess, how better to serve them. And then ultimately, these small gestures can give kind of a small insight as to how really we adapt as we go through this process. And if you can go to the next slide, please. So this next one really sets up our next topic, and it's really about business strategy. We're often told that the character is built during tough times. And I had a really incredible leader one time, and he told me, he's like, Vic, you're doing awesome. We love everything you do, but the market's doing great. What happens during the tough times? And so I think that's where we got to kind of take a step back and understand, so what do we do during the tough times? And, when you come under pressure, that's where you move forward. I think the sentiment is that you may be truly about business, in particular, 2020, obviously COVID-19 has forced some businesses to take a look at their goals and really why they're in business for the first place. But it may really boil down to really serving your customers. So if I think about it, I would say, so we really look at how we assess the changes to customers, and we want to walk through and evaluate our value propositions and deliver great experience. But finally, what I would say is, how can you share your strategy, not just with, your customers, but also with your employees to make sure they feel the full impact of your business. But, before I get into that, let's take a talk and let's kind of look into what our companies are doing. And if we can go to the next slide, please. Perfect. So if you don't already have a formalized mission statement, what I would say is I would strongly encourage you to write it down. A mission statement, it's not a short explanation of your business it's really more about your purpose and your goals. What I find is many business owners intuitively know this, but many business owners don't know or don't have to take the time to step aside and think about, what's the big picture? What's the day-to-day chaos that's going on? I don't know, if I was to evaluate your business with regards to COVID and consider some changes, I would probably start with, maybe a refresher, why did we go into business the first time? What is it we really want to do? And when I think about a mission statement, it doesn't have to be intimidating. It can be super broad. For instance, I would say, and my wife just started a job as a physical therapist, and she showed me her owner's mission statement, and it says, we want to go above and beyond, and we want to offer the best political or physical statements parable. And I'm like, I kind of agree, but I would kind of say we want to improve health and well-being of our customers and clients. So if you think about it, having this statement as a guideline, it can really help with a physical therapist to figure out how to better serve their clients and better overcome different things. And if we can go to the next slide. So again, when you think about your mission statement, what I would say is keep it in mind, it's all about your customers. You may or you may not have mapped out your customers' journeys or your clients in the past. What I would say is if you haven't, a customer journey is the sum of the experience that customers go through when interacting with your brand and your company. If you haven't already built a journey for your customers, this section is going to be really crucial. It can help you map the journey to your account and your customers during these crises and these crazy times. And I think oftentimes, the journey is really around, jargons. And I hate to say that because I know it's a really easy word, but for instance, I hear marketing firms and they say a customer journey is a marketing funnel. First time I heard that, I'm like, I don't even know what a marketing funnel is. But I would say, the customer journey is not to be complicated, right? Essentially, the customer journey is around the process which someone discovers for your businesses. They recognize what it is you offer with regards to your value, and then they decide to become a new customer. So really understanding what your customer's value is about you and decide, why they want to become a customer, that can really help, really evaluate what new customers you have. And if we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much. And again, even, if you understand what your customer journey was prior to January, and I think prior to January, we're all really good, right? But it may look different today, especially based on our customer needs and their mindsets. I think while people have felt the impact of COVID-19 in unique ways, I don't know, to me, it's safe to say that everyone's life has been altered and habits have been, significantly changed. I saw research recently from Erispool, and it said at the end of May, how Americans looked at 2020 and beyond. And at that time, 54% Americans, and if you guys are writing down notes, please write this down, 50% Americans said they wouldn't travel for leisure in 2020. So if you think about it, that could significantly affect, not just business catering, but travel, hospitality, industry, restaurants, entertainment. There was another poll that they did, and they said 83% of Americans said they were more likely to exercise at home than the gym. And I can totally agree. Like I said, my mom was a big gym rat, and she's 83, bless her heart. I had to buy her a treadmill, and it took like 4 months to get it. So we have to evolve. We have to look at different options. They also said was 25% said they intend to go to the movie theaters, which I thought was a little crazy. I mean, if you want to go to the movie theaters, I'm not going to condemn you, but 75% said they're just going to watch movies at home. There are also some Americans that still like to do things. 76% said they'd actually buy groceries online, and some said they would prefer to shop, for household products. So again, I think when we look at our online providers, when we look at our restaurants, when we look at our retailers, they are catering different things. And again, some of these statistics really emphasize the difference between COVID-19 and pre-challenge with what's going on. I think an emotional component of it is, even as businesses reopen, and I think we all saw, we started to reopen, and now that we're in the flu season, it's kind of changing again. Many Americans really, really worry about, the spread of COVID-19 with their loved ones. Health and safety remains a top priority, and helping consumers ease back is kind of the new normal, right? And I think the final thing I would say about this is, while data and research are incredibly helpful, understanding what's important to your customers, it's equally important to them. And, if you get some anecdotal information about how they're doing, COVID-19 is super, super personal and localized. And I think you'll see that people in your pool, they see things a little differently. Can we go to the next slide? Thank you so much. So as we think about, going through the customer journey, I'm going to use, several examples. And what I would say is there's 5 steps to consider. And the first one is, what is your opportunity? And by the way, we can definitely send you this PowerPoint so you can see it. But when I think about opportunity, I think about, your business exists to serve customers, whether it's their wants or needs. But as we've seen, what customers want and what they need is changing daily, right? So in the past, customers have talked and walked, past a door and thought, oh, I'd like that shirt. However, with less foot traffic, you might not see the same information, and that could be an effect, right? In order to, really figure out how to create an initial conversation, I would take a moment to think about, what is your opportunity? So for the people that are on this call, what I would say is, what is your opportunity? You guys all have different businesses. What is your opportunity? The second thing I would talk about is, how do our customers discover you? And in this scenario, we can, talk about, how customers first experience this, prior to COVID-19. And maybe in their first encounter, they were helping to fight COVID, adapting to products, might have, encouraged them a little bit. And their first encounter, maybe they were thinking about operating in partial impact, right? So, let me think, it's temporary, COVID-19 is temporary. We thought that, back in March, but now it seems like it's got a little longer. But, how can we put a positive spin on scaling back? And then also, how do you also consider, the messages associated with, what our customers are discovering? And you might say, we reduced hours. I don't know, we've held back, prevent a spread, we're doing really good. But again, I would encourage you to talk to your customers about that and let them know what you're doing to prevent COVID. I think the third thing is, how long did they know about this before considering a purchase? So from that aspect, I really think it can take multiple customers, multiple encounters before they become customers. So figuring out what the customers hear and what they learn during your decision processes will really help you overwhelm them. I think the other piece is, remember, some people may not be, comparing you with another brand, right? Others may be deciding between you and making a purchase with, someone else. So how are we dealing with COVID? What decisions do we make? I think the fourth piece is, when is it the best time to buy? And how are customers making this purchase? With that, I will say is, are you making the process easy during COVID? And when people are staying at home, for instance, are you setting home e-commerce? Are you setting up websites? Are you doing different things? The second thing I'll say is, have you set up, countless payment protection for people? Went to the store this morning and I did not want to touch cash, and I'm sorry, it's just me, but I didn't want to put cash. I didn't want to get cash. So I used my card and I swiped it. So do we have that contact paperless in-person thing? If a customer can pay by tapping their phone or their card, do you guys have that, to worry about germ? And then finally, what I'll say is, are you setting up these payment systems? And when you think about it, consider whether your customers have used these in the past, because if they have, that's great. If they haven't, we need to educate them. And going digital is a big, big shift to them. You may need to explain how things work. Maybe, I don't know, with, a sign on your hand register, hands-free, this is what we're doing. And then I think the fifth piece is, once the customer made a purchase, were they satisfied? How they have come back and why. And when I think about this, I think about, customer experience and loyalty. Can they really be very, very important during this time? And I think loyalty is so, so huge. If you tend to have a repeat customer, what I would say is spend time thinking about how you can keep them engaged. And I'll reverse it, if there's a natural break in a relationship, start thinking about ways you can, win them back, for future businesses. For instance, if you run a gym and you had to close, and then all of a sudden, do your members return? If they didn't, what do you do? So making customers feel real valued and help them, win back those customers from the start. If we can go, oh my gosh, Kathy, you are awesome. So the next thing I would say is, really one of the reasons why we started this section was with the focus on customers, because it's everything we know about, how we live. We know about their interactions as consumers. Your customers definitely are feeling different now. And I think we all realize that, but your business may or may not. So think about that. I think to get a better handle on what we may or may not even, change around our business, let's home in on one concept, and that's really your value proposition. And when I think about that, and some of you guys probably have it, some of you, technology challenges. Some of you may have it, some of you may not, but I think this may change the way you think coming in the beginning year. So for instance, what I would say is, if you're only a company that is, say offering delivery, is that incredibly relevant? If you're only a company that offered a brick and mortar option, I don't know. Would you might want to modify your value proposition and accommodate other customers and concerns around COVID? We talked about the four mainstreams, and we talked about approaching your value statement. The first, what I would say is make sure it's relevant and impactful for your target audience. And again, I'm going to repeat that again. Is it relevant to your impactful and target audience? And that's why we talk so much about the customer now. And we'll even talk about it more in just a moment. But I think the second thing is, to stay true to who you are as a company. You guys, created great companies, but think about going back to it, serving a customer's need is great, but it's not authentic to who you really are and what you do. You may feel forced to, I don't know, maybe do something different to be sustainable. So, which brings me to the next point, continue to stay relevant over time. If you may need to shift your value proposition to account for unique and challenging situations that we're in, that's fine. But be in mind, it is a radical departure and it may hurt you in the year from now. So again, think about forward. And then finally, your value proposition should be relevant to your competition. What I will say is Wells Fargo, and again, it's not a Wells Fargo plug, I promise you guys, but we have a thing called the competitive intelligence tool. It will show you what your competition is doing. And honestly, I don't care if you're Wells Fargo or at Bank of America or Chase or Union. Look at the tool, find out what your competition is doing. And one thing I will tell you is, we're really going to drive a little further going forward, during this COVID time. So if we can go to the next slide real quick. And then again, what I would say is your business that you're proposing customers relevant to impactful. And what I mean by that is, we've just seen how customers have changed, right? There's relevant and impactful due to change as well. But some businesses have made some adjustments instinctively, right? I think about breweries. My son lives in Northern California. There's a bunch of breweries up there, and didn't like that he was close to a brewery, but he realized that the brewery kind of shut down and they started, manufacturing hand sanitizers. I guess that's the best way to say it, but yeah, but they found a way to kind of move and above and beyond. When I think about clothing manufacturers, they realize, I can't make a t-shirt, but I can make a face mask. Other businesses have found, more service-based changes. For instance, if you think about hair salons, obviously they're limited to the number of clients they have. If you think, who are the clients? Are they still nervous about spending hours in the salon? They might post videos, right? We can do at-home tie-dyes. We can do different things. So, just try to think outside the box, do something a little bit different. I know, in fact, there's been several expanding options, like curbside pickup. One of the most common is, in the businesses, staying relevant to impact, during COVID. We've seen restaurants, for instance, that have moved beyond just, takeout, but they're offering meal kits. If you're a restaurant, are you offering meal kits? Are you doing different things? These might be, just, include some partially made dishes. Could be just ingredients, but again, it's just kind of shifting your idea, thinking about things differently. It's also possible you've had needed change to your business with regards to COVID-19. And again, that's totally normal. I get it. And not all business have to adjust. I think for some, you have to adjust, some you don't. If you have made some changes, what I would say is take a moment to think about whether these changes can be relevant and impactful over time. And again, I'll say relevant and impactful over time, because it could be just during COVID, it could be longer because we don't know how long it's going to last. But what I would say is for, some, these changes may phase out as habits, just to reach a new normal. But for other businesses, some of the new products and ideas may add value and could, help you in the future. The other thing I'll say is, consider, I heard a friend of mine, she has a dance studio and she launched online dances in March. And I'm like, that's crazy. I don't know about that. But those classes, they've just been funded, and it's a new way for them to deliver some value. But if the studio developed a dance class option for parents who were stuck in the room to supervise their kids in dance class, can that, might significantly change what's happening. So again, think about all the options. It's not just about the short term, but also the long term. Again, in this case, the business may even include, updating their value prop, and we talked about that earlier, how can you cater to parents and incorporate changes to personal and classes? When I think, all these instances, the changes to businesses really, really match original goals in business, the mission statement, and any unique ideas, anything to help you differentiate your business from someone else, that's definitely going to help. And then last, I'll say, all of which, can enhance benefits to your customers. So spending time thinking about whether you're shifting your overall value proposition, you're changing your value proposition, you can keep your value proposition, but keep in mind, stay ahead of the curve, go forward. And if we can go to the next slide real quick. Again, I'm sorry, I'm just looking at time because I want to be cognizant because I know you guys got to go off. So this brings us to, obviously sharing your value proposition, and what I think is, while we have a whole section of market, leader, what we may want to take a moment to touch on is, how many updates, do you do with your value proposition? Word of mouth is obviously big, and it can obviously raise awareness with your company and change different things. We did hear earlier, 78% of customers listen to recommendations from family and friends. So that's where your value proposition comes in. So when you're thinking about talking to family and friends, outside of any formal marketing efforts, make sure you're sharing any updates you made to your business. The other thing I'd say is, try to think of it, kind of in simple terms, right? If someone asks you how your business has changed because of the crisis, do you have a simple answer? Can you explain what's happened? And then I'll throw one last example in. If you consider a spa, you might say, we're really still committed to helping stay healthy and relaxing. We posted a number of self-treatment videos. But if you're not comfortable coming over yet, we're here for you. So with that, if we can move to the next slide. So this one talks about, it's really, really important to understand how important it is to pass your shareholder message to your employees. And I can't emphasize this more, because if your employees don't believe in what you're doing, they're not going to believe in the business. The Society of Humane Resource Management, in a paper crisis in 2016, found out that companies that actively communicated with their employees weathered crisis far better than those that didn't. So what I say is, share what's happening with your employees. This is partially because of social media, and we know that's huge, right? But employees are likely to share information about what you do, what they do, even if it's indirect posts, from their work line. So again, share as much as you can with your team. Communicating thoughtfully, and I'll say this again, thoughtfully with your employees may help you through COVID-19. With the recent jump in unemployment rates, obviously we're seeing employees are very, I hate to say it, but turn to looking at different jobs and different security. If they know you're thinking about them and they value them, it'll ease their peace of mind and you'll be able to retain them. To that end, what I'll say is 78% of businesses have opened up COVID-19 specific communication channels during their employees. And according to some of the surveys that we saw from the Harvard Business Review, a number of business owners have actually established portals, emails, town halls, and to some extent, to make sure that they communicate with their employees about what's happening. So again, according to the experts, they communicate, pay off with your employees. And I'm sorry, if we can go to the next slide. So I know I've covered a lot of information and we're just talking about business strategy, but what I'm sorry, what I would say is a recap, I would say start by writing your mission statement. Why do you exist? And why is your company and your goals important? And then based on that now, based on the research we shared, and what you know about conversations with customers, colleagues, friends. I would say list the most relevant way for you to think about customers and potential customers to change the COVID-19. With those changes in mind, what I would say is, again, write your value proposition, or, think about the benefit to your customer. Are you still delivering the biggest possible benefit? If you made changes to your business and it does this and it's benefited, that's great. If it hasn't, maybe we need to change it. And if so, note on your, your pad, what is your value proposition? How are you going to really help your customers going forward? And then, one last thing, I would say is, determine how your business has really changed. If you think about it, part of your strategy should really be about changing these changes with your family and friends. And I'm a big, big believer in this, because even though I work for a big company, I have family members that have small businesses. And I always ask them, do your family and friends believe in you? And if they do, you're doing the right thing. So what I would say is use really, really simple language to generate, word of mouth about your buzz. You want to make sure you share your new strategies with your employees. And again, this is not just helps, them feel like part of the team, but it really generates word of mouth. So if we can go to the next slide real quick. And again, you might notice you're hearing a common theme, and that is, connect with your communication. Super, super important. Let's dive deeper. I think a wide network of customers, partners, competitors, mentors, peers, they can always help you adjust and rebuild. One of the reasons why COVID-19 is really unique is that in the entire industries, they're all affected, right? It's not just one industry. So not just one or two, but really many. So we talked about it before, right? We got retail, travel, hospitality, entertainment, dining, and more. But because of this, so many businesses shifted from competitors to partners. So again, rely on your partners. And if we can shift to the next slide real quick. And I'm looking at the time because I got a lot of slides, so I'll go a little faster. Make sure you have a mentor. Not just all business owners have mentors, but mentors can be incredibly effective in guiding business owners, particularly during these trying times. In fact, 92% of business owners who have mentors said the relationship has directly impacted their process. With that, we'll go to the next slide. Thank you so much. So when it comes to best advice, with your business in a crisis time, there's a few steps that I could recommend. I think, this might be a situation where you consider a new advisor to help you tackle some specific problems. Or, if you don't have a traditional mentor, make a list of people who, go for your advice, who listen to you. This might be, it could be an attorney, it could be a financial advisor, it could be a legal advisor, but you really, really want to make sure that you talk to some other small business owners, since they may be facing the same difficulties. And if we can go to the next slide. All right. So finding a mentor obviously can be helpful. And as I mentioned, big help. Mentors, they're only a connection that what matters, right? So we touched this earlier, but really, really want to advise, from other small business owners, your peers can be super, super impactful. What I would say is that, the best way to connect with business owners or networks, obviously is through the Carlsbad Chamber. That's my shameless plug. But no, talk to other peers, find out what's happening, and definitely can help you. I will give you one last thing that I saw on this slide. And LinkedIn saw that 55% increase in users as people began staying at home and working online. There's also more content posted on the platform, and much is aimed at helping professionals navigate through the situation. 33% of new content centers around how to handle COVID-19. between February and late March, when the transition or the national transition happened, awareness around the lockdown engaged. So definitely a big plug for having a mentor. And if we can go to the next slide. So what I'd say here is, before taking on additional connections with the digital, you may want to expand your network. Mentioned already, if you haven't already have a professional organization like the Chamber, Carlsbad Chamber, it might be a good time to join. Find them. They're super helpful. They have a lot of influences, and we'll go to the next slide. So on this one, when I think about, when network situations, and you find yourself in, whether it's meeting new professionals or professional organizations, or I don't know, even reconnecting with, existing customer connections online, how do you approach connection matters? What I would say is if you met the person face-to-face, try to mention shared interest. And we talked about that a little bit earlier. Share experiences you've learned during your connection request. Again, LinkedIn is a super huge opportunity. In addition, if you haven't already established, any network contacts and you're trying to check in, I would just say, I don't know, try to check and just say hi, include personal details. Don't talk about your agenda because then it seems self-serving. But, oftentimes, we think about just saying hi, hey, how you doing? How you feeling? What's going on with business? Let's talk about this. Let's go to the next slide real quick, because I want to save enough time for questions. So when I think about action steps for this next selection, really start, and we talked about already, right? Creating a profile for social media. If you haven't already done this, make sure you do it. Visit them frequently. If you're not satisfied with your pictures, definitely change them. Seek professionals, organizations that can help you. You can look at different things. Develop a plan for checking in on conversations. Make the list of your top customers, top vendors, even your top competitors, because as I mentioned before, that's definitely going to help you through COVID-19. And if we can go to the next slide. So what I will say is, so far we've kind of discussed, where we're at in this crisis, how your customers are feeling, how your business is, I don't know, kind of manage change, and staying connected. I think the next step is to really lean on, some of the other factors, right? So how to build your marketing plan that fits with your clientele. If we think about it, all the topics we discussed so far about reviewing, kind of where you came from, but now we need to go forward. So if we can go to the next slide. And as I mentioned, we talked about, how our customers' lives are changing. We talked about, we're also, what's interacting with customers. But what I would say is, do you want your marketing to focus on existing customers who are leaving due to COVID? And again, it's up to you. I would say, we want to retain customers, but, again, think about that. Do you want to focus on winning back customers who have left? That's a lot harder, right? And I think retaining customers is probably the easiest thing to do. Winning back customers or acquiring new customers are tough. When I think about knowing what you're marketing to achieve a craft message, so it could be, I don't know, it could be, how can I help, determine, how to target my audience? I think, some other things might be, how, should marketing message hit my biggest selling points? So again, kind of think through that. And you're right on spot. So for instance, what I would say is, if I looked at a flower shop and I was really worried about people's concerns around traveling, and it could lead to couples that cancel rescheduling for the wedding plans. Very, very true, right? We see it happen all the time. So if you think about your audience is brides who are, and for the guys, I'm sorry, the guys as well, but mostly for the brides, they're stressed out about wedding planning. In addition to COVID-19, your biggest selling point might be that, I don't know, you're able to offer discount and confirm you'll still work with them. So if you think about it from your standpoint, your marketing message might be, we're still open and we want to help. We're offering discounts to all local or loyal customers. Together, we'll get through this. So when you think about this, this may also work, with some talking points through when you talk about COVID-19 virus. There's some really, really good information around that. And I see we're on the next point. So again, I would say save your messages. Consider how you're conveying this message. The need to social distance has obviously created a major shift towards digital communication. Since most effective marketing targets customers that, they're there, consider, what are we doing with digital? It doesn't mean ignoring traditional things, right? So we still want to do the traditional, but for example, if you have a brick and mortar restaurant, consider developing a different plan for a different storefront. And if we can go to the next slide. So what I'll say is, once you've figured out your digital marketing tactics, what I would say is really, really think about how you'll message their success. So one upside to digital marketing is that, it makes it really easy to track how well you're doing. You might even be able to, look at, I don't know, say ABC text and see where, different versions of your message are going out and what performs better. Since everyone responds to a crisis like COVID differently, it may include, just good opportunity for you getting a better sense, of how your customers base are feeling, potential customer outrights. So as you can see, there's a lot of elements that go into that. And if we can go to the next slide. As you guys remember, we did talk about budgeting. What I would say is, there's always free ways to market your business, including sharing content on social media. Definitely take advantage of that. Many businesses who are already spending money on marketing may be tempted to cut back right now. And what I would caution about is, I would say, be prudent with your spending, but also be very, very cautious, right? Because, I may want to spend some money that I feel is best appropriate. If you think about cutting back, you're not alone. I think I saw a poll recently, and like 75% of digital ad buyers are adjusting their spending. But again, notice the messaging is always important. Those who spend 65% and have changed their messaging, you'll see a huge, huge increase. So if we can go to the next slide real quick. And again, I think we've covered a lot of information on marketing. What I would say is, first, craft your marketing message. Do this, with your goals, audience, and selling points and buys. Next, what I would say is update your digital presence. Super, super huge. So whether you're using websites, social media, whatever, make sure you deal with that. Develop a marketing strategy. And what I say by that is, figure out what other channels you might want to use to get your message out, with regards to whether it's social media, email, or social. And then finally, figure out whether you want to spend money on these ads or start building an actual impact. And again, there's not a right or wrong reason, but I think either way, just kind of think through it. And if we can go to the next slide. So I know this is probably what you guys all want to talk about, and I do want to leave a few minutes, and I know we're getting short in time, but I do want to cover some of the different options that are out there. And I think this is probably the biggest concern for business owners that I talk about. And what I know is there's multiple options. There's government-sponsored initiatives, there's industry-backed funds, and there's so much more. And our goal is not to get you to take a loan with Wells Fargo. Our goal is really to assist you with the options that are available and help you through this pandemic. So if we can go to the next slide. What I would say is, first and foremost, before you apply to any lender or talk to anyone, figuring out what your capital is during this crisis in many ways can really, really help you. What I'll say is, start with cash flow, right? Figure out specifically where you're seeing gaps and help you targetedly approach, what's happening. So what I'll say is if you haven't run a cash flow, you may be able to run one. I think SCORE, which is a nonprofit, has a really, really good 12-month progression, and you can see where you're spending money, what's happening with it. I would definitely do that. What I'd say is each month, as you do those projections, make adjustments, right? Look at your cash flow, see where you've spent money, and it can include fixed costs, right? So fixed costs are super, super easy. It's rent, payroll, variable costs like vendor payments. On the other side, you're going to have some incoming cash, right? So you have sales, you have payments made to you, I don't know, even possibly inventory return, assessments. So, but if you do this for the last year, it's really, really going to help you. And I think even more importantly, what lenders are going to want to see is now that you've looked for the last year, what's happened in the last 5 months since COVID? You've been you've been able to analyze, what's happening. You've looked at your revenue, you've looked through COVID, what's happening. And the more you can talk to a lender, the better. If we can go to the next slide. Thank you so much. So what I'll say is one of the most talked about sources, for small business and, obviously is PPP. And I know you guys probably have some questions about that. Obviously, PPP was really, really beneficial to customers. What I will say is please, 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 and I'll say it one more time, please, keep track of every expense you make. Because what happens is we're going to look at that, not just as a lender, but as an SBA representative. And we're going to look to see where it's spent. There were some changes that happened on June 5th, and they extended the terms for repayment. And that was very beneficial. If you received your loan prior to June 5th, you still may be eligible for access to updated terms. But again, talk to your banker, but please, please track it. Again, I don't want you to think PPP is the only resource. The SBA has a variety of other resources that are available. So if you have questions, just go online, type in SBA online resources. It'll give you a plethora of information. There's the Opportunity Finance Network, there's large loans, there's Main Street, there's so many different things. With that, if we can go to the next slide. So, and like I mentioned, in addition to applying for funding, again, there's many options. What I would say is start with your bank. And again, this isn't a Wells Fargo advertisement. I would say if you're with B of A, Chase, Union, La Jolla Bank, go to whoever your banker is, start by reviewing your financial statements. And what I'll say is, make sure you're looking at all your fees. And this is where, and I see I have some bankers on the line. Bankers, close your ears. If you have a loan perhaps, and it's not working out really well, talk to your banker and see if you can get some additional incentives. If you have a checking account and you may be getting overdraft fees, talk to your banker and say, hey, is there any way that we can waive these fees? And I'll tell you, it's not something the banks want to hear, but the banks are encouraged and they do want to help you. So if there's any way we can help you, and think long-term, right? So if you have a loan and it's going to come due in 2 months or 6 months, but you can't make those payments, ask them, can you stretch it out for 12 months? Can you stretch it out for 24? Yes, it might hurt you a little bit in the long run, but if it improves your cash flow, I would definitely recommend that. So definitely reach out to your bankers and ask for assistance. And if we can go to the next slide. Oh, man, you are magical. So what I would say is, just to summarize what we talked about finance is, if you're one of the many recipients of PPP or any funded associated government-backed CARES Act, be sure to track your spending. Please, please track it. It's going to make it so much easier. And it can really help you with, hopefully forgiveness, but if not forgiveness, the repayment piece. If you're looking for additional funding options, consider different options that are available. There's a lot of, nonprofits that are there. And then finally, talk to your banker. If you need small adjustments to help you with day-to-day situations, we're there to help you. Specifically, what I would say is look at, any potential fees or reviews of terms or loans for lines that are coming up. So definitely, work with us with that. And then if we can go to the next slide. Lastly, we've covered a lot of it today. I'll just wrap up by saying, I just want to leave you with this, a lot of things to think about right now, right? Situation is changing constantly. Your businesses require you to be thinking about a lot of short-term and long-term things, but, try to remember the future, And what I mean by that is you opened your business for a long-term plan. Keep in mind that long-term plan, because I know you guys have the best intentions in mind. And, we love small businesses. And I think that's really the backbone of our community. And, like all crises in the past, whether it's an economic calendar or, I don't know, unknown illness, humanity always seems to persevere, and we will again. But while thinking about the big picture, as always, if there's anything we can do to help you, we're here there for you. So with that, I'm going to open it up real quick. We don't even have to go through the last couple slides. Any questions that we have on the line?
Victor, that was great. Thank you so much for your presentation.
Oh, absolutely. I appreciate all of our small business leaders.
Yeah, I'm just looking quickly to see if there's any questions in the chat. And no questions.
Awesome. Well, like I said, I can definitely forward this, I'm sorry, this PowerPoint out. If people need help with PP forgiveness, whether it's through Wells or not, I can give you guidelines and we can move forward.
Well, thanks again. Thanks to Wells Fargo as well. We really appreciate this. And if anyone wants a copy of the slide deck, just email me and I'll send it out to you. I can connect you with Victor as well. So again, thank you for doing the presentation. It will be online in a couple of days, so you can share it with others as well. So Victor, thank you.
All right, thank you so much.